question that we have to ask ourselves is, what have we done and what are we doing to bring about the only end to this threat that can be permanent, and that is regime change in Iran. Sadly, this country, the United States, which Abraham Lincoln called the last best hope of earth, has not done all it could and is not doing all it can. In fact, what it has done and what it is doing can be said to be a stain on the honor of the United States. It's our job to make sure that that stain is removed. Well, quite simply, the MEK is the only organization of Iranians, both inside Iran and outside Iran, that opposes the current regime, that favors a government in Iran that is democratic, secular, non-nuclear, and a republic. Again, this is not one of the few organizations that fits that description. It is, in fact, the only one.
With the hope of convincing the rest of the world that the loyal opposition, those pro-democracy warriors, individuals and families in Iran, can at least look to the United States, not with casual and occasional criticism of the Iranian government and how it treats its citizens, but a sustained clamor for change, aggressive diplomatic efforts to at least pull some of our friends and allies into the chorus of opposition to this regime. Time is running out. There aren't too many options left. And I think, while we'll continue to work through the UN and be hopeful, but you can't be too optimistic. We don't have too many friends that are willing to step along with us and sing from the same song sheet, but I think it's absolutely imperative that we try, and we're going to have to take the lead in that regard. So let's delist the MEK, and let's begin a sustained public and diplomatic effort around the brand that we believe in, that is America, and a brand and a set of values and liberties that the majority of the people in Iran cherish in their hearts, but would love to see reflected in their society and their country. We've got strong, strong philosophical allies in that country, and we need to be much more aggressive in supporting them, and I think that's probably the last best hope, and that's public diplomacy and public embrace of the opposition and the delisting of the MEK.
The FTO designation, as you can imagine, during my time in the government, I mean, I was in the Justice Department for many years and then in the White House, monitoring the FTO process, the designation, the Foreign Terrorist Organization designation process, working with the State Department was among my responsibilities. I must tell you that having traveled throughout the Middle East and around the world talking to our allies, the FTO designation process, we should just be honest, is disrespected by our allies. It is ineffective, it is corrupted by politics, and I don't mean corrupted in a criminal sense, but it has been pervaded by the political debate, which is part and parcel of a foreign policy discussion when you're setting foreign policy goals. And the fact that we permit domestic politics and foreign policy concerns to come into what is supposed to be an objective process, that is the designation of a foreign terrorist organization, undermines U.S. credibility. The MEK is not the only people who have suffered. Sometimes it's been used in other contexts to take somebody off the list as a diplomatic reward to try and encourage good behavior. This is, I would go one step further than my colleagues. Not only having disarmed and renounced violence and assisted the United States, should the MEK come off the list, the U.S. Congress should abolish the list, because I frankly think, in many respects, because of how it's operated, it does more to undermine our credibility on these subjects. And so I would both take MEK off the list, and I would ask Congress to abolish it.
I have commented the problem of the regime in Tehran over these recent years, primarily from the perspective of the nuclear weapons threat. that the regime poses. This has been an active program for over 20 years in their effort to get both nuclear weapons and a ballistic missile capability to deliver those weapons. It's a really frightening prospect. And it is the principal reason, in my case, why looking at the various options that the United States and its friends and allies around the world have had, that I came to the conclusion that the only really long-term permanent answer to this threat was to eliminate the regime in Tehran. And that while it's become unpopular in recent years to talk about regime change, in fact, it should be the declared policy of the United States, proudly declared, to change that regime and replace it with one that is responsive to the people of Iran. I think the world would be a lot safer place once that happened. I think the people of Iran would be in a lot better place if that happened. And I don't see why we should shrink from not only helping to make it happen, but to say it plainly. I think that's why in this very unhappy environment that we have to return to what has to be the long-term solution, which is replacing the regime in Tehran entirely, not by moderates within the regime. This is the hunt for the great white whale that's consumed American diplomacy for 3 decades. Within this regime, there are no moderates on the question of nuclear weapons. They are all in favor of it. And in fact, there are really no moderates when it comes to a future for the people of Iran to have a democratic say in their own government. So that it becomes all the more important for the United States to insist that the regime itself needs to be replaced and that the Iranian people should take the opportunity that would be presented to get rid of the regime that's causing this fundamental isolation from the rest of the world because of the policies that the regime has been pursuing in support of international terrorism and the pursuit of weapons of mass destruction. That is the opportunity for fundamental change in Iran that we need. And that's why it's so important that the MEK has renounced nuclear weapons unequivocally. I would hope that anyone else opposed to the regime in Tehran would do the same, and that we would come to the point where we'd find out who was really popular inside Iran through the tried and true mechanism of a really free and fair election there sooner rather than later. Thank you very much.
Our report clearly demonstrates that the MEK PMOI has not engaged in acts of terrorism for decades, and even those acts, as leader Dick Armey and I concluded in a previous report that we turned out about 2 years ago, even the acts that were originally attributed to the MEK PMOI may have been falsely attributed to them because of propaganda from Savak and because of propaganda from the current regime in Tehran today. Every day that the MEK PMOI remains on the terrorism list is shameful, and some could say even treasonous. And I say this to members of the Department of State and the administration: don't hide behind the so-called classified information to justify maintaining the MEK PMOI on the list, because a 3-judge appellate court of the United States has ruled that it's just plain wrong, if not unconstitutional, since it denies those so designated due process. To the apologists and the appeasers in our government, give us your best shot. Make your best case for keeping them on the FTO list, but give us a fair opportunity to rebut your innuendo, your false claims, and the planted information from Tehran. And if you're wrong, get the hell out of the way, and let us get on with the business of protecting our nation, containing the evil regime in Tehran, and supporting our friends here and abroad who share common values, goals, and aspirations. Thank you very much.